courageux, courageuse. Ennuyeux, ennuyeuse. Peureux, peureuse. Les professions, première partie. Sienne, une.
He has in French is
Il a. Il a.
how would you say he has prepared the coffee for me? How would you say you have prepared the coffee? He has in French is how would you say you have prepared the coffee?
Vous avez préparé le café?
He has in French is
Il a. Il a.
although you may be only vaguely aware of it, how would you say you have prepared the coffee? He has in French is
Il a.
he has in French is
Il a. Il a.
as you can see, those ION words are very Now, as we've seen, there clearly are already many groups of words, typically decided by word endings that you can easily identify as being of French origin. So, words that end in ION, words that end in ABL. So, we've been using I would like, which is he has in French is
Il a. Il a.
how would you say he has prepared the coffee? You would say
Votre mère. Votre mère.
so how would you say your mother has visited the park, your father has visited the Louvre? The word for preparation in French is
Préparation. Préparation.
as you can perhaps tell, it is similar to the English preparation. In fact, it's spelt almost exactly the same. The only difference is in the pronunciation. You'll also I hate you. I like that description. It's a very easy way to remember how to pronounce it. So again, in is pronounced
Un.
So how would you say invitation in French?
Invitation.
How would you say decoration in French? The full word decoration
Décoration.
is
La maison. La maison.
so how would you say I have decorated the house?
J'ai décoré la maison.
All right. Now, if I have decorated the house is
J'ai décoré la maison.
how do you think you would say I decorated the house.
J'ai décoré la maison.
Now you may have guessed correctly that actually in French, I have decorated the house and I decorated the house are in fact said in exactly the same way. In English, we use two different tenses there. We have I have decorated the house. We also have I decorated the house. There's a slight difference in meaning in English. It's very small, but it does exist. But in French, it's in fact easier because both for I have decorated the house or I decorated the house, for both of them you will simply say
J'ai décoré la maison.
Okay, if I have decorated the house and I decorated the house is
J'ai décoré la maison.
how do you think you would say I did decorate the house?
J'ai décoré la maison.
As you can see, for all three tenses that we have in English, just one is used in French, and this is one way in which French is much easier to learn than English. You may, if you know French people, or if you've spent time in a French-speaking country, you may find that they sometimes use English in a way we wouldn't. They may say something like, I have decorated the house last night, which we wouldn't say. We'd say, I decorated the house last night. It's difficult for them to understand that in English we will use very variable tenses for this same type of expression, because in French, they will, for all of them, they'll just be saying, I have decorated the house. So, it's a problem for French speakers, but fortunately for us, for English speakers, it's an advantage, because you don't need to worry about swapping tenses. Everything is, I have decorated the house, I have this, I have that, as we'll now see. All right, how would you say you have decorated the house?
Vous avez décoré la maison.
Let's turn that round into a question now, and we're going to change you have round into have you, and we're going to say, have you decorated the house?
Avez-vous décoré la maison?
How do you think you'd pronounce the French word reservation?
Réservation.
And how do you think you'd change it and make it into reserved? We'll cut off the Asian and add the cafe E, so what will reserved be?
Réservé.
How would you say he has reserved?
Il a réservé.
A table in French, a table is...
Une table. Une table.
So how would you say he has reserved a table?
Il a réservé une table.
Again, table is spelt the same way in English as it is in French. And you'll find that words in English that end in able, as well as perhaps you can call them their cousins, words that end in ible in English, are the same in French. So you'll find these words that end in able or ible, and so able such as table, for instance, it will be the same word normally in French, pronounced differently. But if you can learn French pronunciation, it gives you access to thousands of words simply using the English you already know. Okay, so if he has reserved a table is...
Il a réservé une table.
How would you say he reserved a table?
Il a réservé une table.
As you can see, again, it's the same, because where we use two tenses, they use one. Let's try the same thing again. How would you say he did reserve a table?
Il a réservé une table.
As you may remember, your father in French is...
Votre père.
How would you say your father has reserved a table?
Votre père a réservé une table.
For you in French is...
Pour vous. Pour vous.
How would you say, I have reserved a table for you?
J'ai réservé une table pour vous.
To say for dinner in French, as we mentioned earlier, you will say for the dinner. Can you remember what that is?
Pour le dîner.
Again, make sure to pronounce the dinner as.
Le dîner.
So with that in mind, how would you say, I have reserved a table for dinner, or as the French would say, I have reserved a table for the dinner?
J'ai réservé une table pour le dîner.
Let's look again at the word invitation, which was a little bit trickier to pronounce because the in at the beginning has that sort of sulky teenager sound that's pronounced.
Un.
So how would you say again invitation?
Invitation.
Okay, and let's change the invitation into invited. We'll cut off the ation and add a café E. So invited will be.
Invité.
So how would you say I have invited?
J'ai invité.
How would you say I have invited Paul?
J'ai invité Paul.
To say to the park in French, to the park, you will say.
Au parc. Au parc.
So how would you say I have invited Paul to the park?
J'ai invité Paul au parc.
To say to the cinema, you would say.
Au cinéma. Au cinéma.
So how would you say, have you invited Paul to the cinema?
Avez-vous invité Paul au cinéma?
As you can see, those ION words are very useful. All right.
Avez-vous invité Paul au cinéma?
As you can see, those ION words are very useful. On the one hand, they give you 1250 words simply by changing the pronunciation of them. On the other, you cut off the ation and add the café E, and you've got the past tense. And the various things we've been able to say like, I have reserved, we have decorated, whatever, it's been relatively easy. But the ION words are even better than that. Not only can we find things we can use in the past tense, we can also find things we can use in the present tense. If you take one of these words that ends in ation, for example, such as preparation, cut off the ation and add ER on the end, instead of a café E, add ER, you will have to prepare. Now, the question, of course, is how do we pronounce that? How do we pronounce preparation with the ation cut off with an ER on the end? Well, it's actually easy, because with an ER on the end, it's pronounced in exactly the same way as it is when it has a café E on the end. Because ER at the end of a word is pronounced just the same way as a café E is at the end of a word. So let's try again. How did you say earlier prepared?
Préparer.
And let's try now to prepare.
Préparer.
So as you can see, it's the same. Now, they're spelt differently, but if you're learning to speak French particularly, it doesn't matter. It just makes it easier, because you only ever need to worry about saying
Préparer.
So, I would like in French, I would like is
Je voudrais. Je voudrais.
So how would you say I would like to prepare?
Je voudrais préparer.
I would like to prepare the dinner.
Je voudrais préparer le dîner.
Again, make sure to pronounce the dinner as,
Le dîner.
and actually, dinner in French also ends in ER, just as these other words do. So it has a similar pronunciation at the end as that cafe-e sound. So the cafe-e at the end of the word, or the ER at the end of a word, both have that A sound in French.